president's hasty announcement of a trade war appears to have been spooking markets, and now this morning he is doubling down in a tweet. He wrote, "When a country, USA, is losing many billions of dollars on trade with virtually every country it does business with, trade wars are good and easy to win. Example, when we are down $100 billion with a certain country and they get cute, don't trade anymore, we win big. It's easy." It looks very much like the trade war fears are very real, and the president is stoking them this morning.
It'll be 25% for steel. It'll be 10% for aluminum. And it'll be for a long period of time.
President Trump sending shockwaves through Washington and around the world, announcing his administration will impose punishing tariffs on steel and aluminum imports, despite strong objections from his advisors and his own party.
What's been allowed to go on for decades is disgraceful. It's disgraceful.
Fears of a trade war ending with the stock market plummeting and uniting Republican lawmakers in opposition.
This is leftist economic policy, and we've tried it a whole bunch of times over the last 2 centuries, and every time American families have suffered. It's bad policy.
A spokesman for House Speaker Paul Ryan urging the president to consider the unintended consequences of this idea and look at other approaches. Senate Finance Chair Orrin Hatch warning that the tariffs are a tax hike the American people don't need and can't afford. And this Wall Street Journal editorial calls the move the biggest policy blunder of Trump's presidency, adding that he is taking a machete to America's trade credibility. President Trump's chief economic advisor, Gary Cohn, lobbied strongly against the move, and multiple outlets are reporting that Cohn is threatening to resign if the tariffs are imposed. Another bizarre policy twist, the NRA's top lobbyist, Chris Cox, signals that President Trump may be backing down from his surprising support for gun control just one day after saying this.
Some of you people are petrified of the NRA. You can't be petrified. It doesn't make sense that I have to wait till I'm 21 to get a handgun, but I can get this weapon at 18. I don't know. Take the guns first, go through due process second.
After meeting with the president, Cox tweeted last night that Mr. Trump supports strong due process and does not want gun control. A White House official saying only that the president believes in the Second Amendment when asked about the shift. President Trump tweeting that the NRA meeting was great.
I think he's just entertaining both sides. I think he's listening to see what both sides have to say.
The disarray in Trump's policy fueling questions about the president's ability to govern, given the chaos inside the West Wing. After months of tension with President Trump, an administration official tells CNN that National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster could be out by the end of this month, joining a growing list of staffers that have left the Trump administration. The White House denies that McMaster's departure is imminent, but there are a number of names already being floated as possible replacements. This, as sources tell CNN, the FBI is scrutinizing the negotiations and financing surrounding the Trump International Hotel and Tower in Vancouver. The president's daughter Ivanka played a key role in getting the deal off the ground. The federal probe could prevent Ivanka from obtaining a full security clearance, something her lawyer refutes. Allison and Chris, it appears the troubles keep mounting for Ivanka Trump and her husband, Jared Kushner. Jared Kushner had his security clearance stripped this week, and ethical questions are mounting about the $500 billion in loans his real estate company received from businessmen who met with him at the White House. Meanwhile, President Trump is expected to leave this morning to head to Billy Graham's funeral this afternoon.
All right, Abby, thank you very much. Let's bring in CNN political analysts John Avlon and Brian Karen. Brian, good to see you. It's been a while.
Good to see you.
All right, so we are doing politics by tweet this morning, and it's important because it has literally global reverberations and implications. So let's read this tweet again. Abby had it in her piece, but really you need to hear it. All right, it just came out very, very recently. When a country, us, is losing many billions of dollars on trade with virtually every country it does business with, trade wars are good. Now, you have never heard a U.S. president say that before because they listen to their advisors, specifically the economic advisors, who would never say this. Then he goes on to say, and easy to win, which we've almost never experienced with one of these. Example, when we're down $100 billion with a certain country and they get cute, don't trade anymore. We win big. It's easy. Okay, Brian. None of this is really accurate in terms of the economists and the advisors who are surrounding the president. Why is he being so impulsive to do something people are asking him not to do?
Because that's who Donald Trump is. He is as impulsive as he wants to be, and if he has a thought, he tweets it. And you're right, the big point is there have been advisors, many of whom we see on a daily basis in the White House, who have been giving him advice about what to do and what to tweet, and how to conduct himself, and he doesn't listen. Bottom line is, if he wants to tweet it, if he feels it, he does it.
But what constituency does this one appeal to? Since so many, let me just quickly read you. The Wall Street Journal has an editorial out today. Donald Trump made the biggest policy blunder of his presidency Thursday by announcing that next week he'll impose tariffs of 25% on imported steel and 10% on aluminum. This tax will punish American workers, invite retaliation that will harm U.S. exports, divide his political coalition at home, anger allies abroad, and undermine his tax and regulatory reforms. Who does it work for?
It works for the protectionist populist base that Bannon advocated for and Trump really appealed to. This has been a core of his message. Donald Trump has never been a free trader, folks. And the Wall Street Journal editorial board, that's not the constituency he's appealing towards. What's fascinating, though, is he's alienating key economic advisors like Gary Cohn. But this is a continuation of core campaign policies. Said, forgotten men and women of Western Pennsylvania and Eastern Ohio, we're going to have a more protectionist trade policy. We're going to fight for you. You've been screwed over by bad deals in the past. This is a follow-through of a campaign promise. It's just offensive to the conservatives who finally have to confront that he's never been on their side on what had been an article of faith.
It's certainly not a conservative policy. They are not in favor of these kind of tariffs traditionally. Look at the markets right now, okay? Here are your futures. We know the markets were down yesterday. Here they are right now, okay? Red hours are bad. We all know that. Now, what's going on here in terms of the metrics of the tariff also is important. Steel, the tariff is going to be less of an impact because we import less of our steel. Aluminum is really the game here that he's playing on. And the layers of implications distress all the different constituencies. You heard the Wall Street Journal say it's going to hurt workers. Why? Well, you may see layoffs because that's what companies decide to do when their bottom line gets affected. They're either going to pass on the cost, they're going to decide to swallow it, which we almost never see, or they're going to offset it on their own supply side of their own savings. So the question becomes, what happens next? So he does this. What are all his advisors worried about happening?
Well, I think what you should be worried about, what we all should be worried about, is those advisors who are going to flee. And the best and the brightest, it's becoming increasingly difficult to attract decent help at the White House if you can't get the guy who's in charge to listen to what you're saying, and you're the expert in saying it.
Why would they leave over this? What do they think's going to happen after this tariff that is unacceptable?
Most economists will tell you that after a couple, it may work in a very short run, but you take a look at the long game, a year, 2 years out, and what you've talked about is exactly what the problem is going to be. It's going to tank the economy. It's going to increase costs. It's going to hurt the very workers that he claims that he wants to help. And that's the end game.
Yeah, and look, there are deep divisions inside this White House and in the Republican Party. He has protectionist advisors like Navarro. He's got more free traders like Cohn. And the other question is, there's a Pennsylvania special election coming up. And did that prospect of that in some way lead him impulsively to make this decision? Sounds crazy, but this is the Trump White House.
Okay.